What up, though? This is Thomas, and you are listening to Dollar Theater. This episode, I'm covering the movie Win Win, starring Paul Giamatti and Jeffrey Tamor. And the kid is played by Alex Schaefer. This movie was definitely enjoyable and frustrating a lot. There are definitely charming parts, there are humorous parts, but it had some meat on its bones. Paul Giamatti plays Mike, who is a lawyer, but is also a high school wrestling coach. The team that he coaches, he used to actually play on. They used to be good, but they have not won in a very long time. He is married to his wife, Jackie, who are in the swing of things. They have two kids, Shelly and Abby, and they both are just trying to manage to get by. Vig is the assistant coach on the team, who is played by Jeffrey Tamor. Uh, I thought he'd have a bigger role in this film, but the time he does spend on screen, uh, I feel like it's a great example of why he is well respected in his field. Um, the way the movie opened up was definitely a shock. Literally uh, the first words in the movie was their 6-year-old daughter Abby saying shit, and this eventually leads to a conversation um, between Jackie, Mike, and Abby, and they talk about how um, that's a bad word, and it's funny because right before they have this whole conversation, Jackie also says it uh, while she's in the kitchen, and then um, Mike ends up leaving to go towards work, and after a conversation with Jackie, he also says it. So, comedy rule of three definitely applied there. We find out that Mike is a lawyer and he helps older people, usually people who are going through trying times and either getting placed in um, old folks' homes or uh, finding somebody to take care of them, or if the state takes responsibility for them. One of his clients is Leo, who is a wealthy older man who is going through the early stages of dementia. We first see him, um, and he's with I think she's a nurse, but she's the one who's taking care of him. But Leo and Mike go to the courts, and instead of being placed in Oak Knolls, which is a uh, old folks' home, um, Leo is very adamant about wanting to live home. And because of the financial struggles that Mike is having, to the point where he's having stress attacks, where he can't breathe, he ends up trying to take up the task uh, of being his legal guardian. And he, of course, gets in over his head, and instead of what he promised, which was taking care of Leo so that Leo can live in his own house, he says that he's going to do that. He pockets the $1,500 a month that it pays to be a legal guardian, and then he places him in the Oaks Knolls home, but he doesn't even pay it. Leo himself is paying it, so it's a totally twisted situation. Um, Mike and Jackie are going to church, and then afterwards she finds out that Mike has lied through omission, not telling that he's a legal guardian over a whole nother person. And they are going to Leo's house to shut his water off. And then we are introduced to a high school kid who is sitting outside, who is actually the uh, grandson of Leo, and he's looking to actually live with his grandfather, even though his grandfather didn't even know he existed. He has a strained relationship with his daughter, and that's later revealed to be because she struggled with drugs and was in a rehab program at the time. And so we have all of these people, they're coming together trying to figure out what's going on, how to make this lie work. That's essentially Mike's motivation. He tells uh, the grandson, he tells the grandson that, hey, the judge assigned you, you being Leo, to this place. And he tells Leo the same thing, and so he can't live with him. And instead, he ends up housing Kyle Timmons, who's the grandson, in their house. And this is a wrench in the original plans, which was to track down the mother and just return them to Ohio. But Kyle Timmons, turns out, was great at wrestling. He was second in state when he lived in Ohio as a freshman, but he didn't wrestle beyond his freshman year. It is revealed why later on, after he connects with Jackie in a real way. She goes from trying to lock him down in the basement, referring to him as Eminem because of his dyed blonde hair, to her later on in the movie having multiple heartfelt conversations to him, and even connecting to their. They both have tattoos. I really enjoyed Jackie, and she is like that. The actual actress is Academy Award nominee Amy Ryan. I personally had never heard of her before, but she was nominated for Gone Baby Gone for Best Supporting Actress. I, of course, know Paul Giamatti. He's a phenomenal actor. And even who later on comes on as another assistant coach, Bobby, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Cannavale. He also was on the wrestling team with Mike growing up, but even though Mike was scrappy and average, Bobby's character was terrible. But he definitely is still passionate about wrestling to the point where he pushes up against Vig and just gets overzealous when coaching on the sidelines. Anyways, Kyle ends up joining the team after a great showing during practice, and you can tell that he came from like a rough home life. He shows up with a bruise on his eye when we first are introduced to him. It's revealed that he has tattoos, and he also smokes. And there's a great there's a great exchange between Jackie and Kyle where he asks, "Hey, so if I wanted to smoke, should I just go outside?" And then she responds, "Well, you shouldn't smoke." And he's like, "Yeah, right. But if I did, should I go out and smoke?" And she replies like, "Yes." Like they're great pieces of dialogue in this film. Even like the opening scene, while Paul's character Mike is going for a early morning jog, Abby ends up in bed with Jackie, who is still waking up, and she asks, "Where's Daddy?" And Jackie says, "He's running." And then Abby replies, "From what?" And that just reminded me of Don't Be a Menace to Society While Drinking Juice in the Hood, where Keenan Ivory Wayne's character like pops up and he's like, message, like that's, and I was right, because I feel like that was sort of the core of what was going on in the bigger story of him just trying to run, just trying to catch up in the sense like financially from the struggles that they have. I like run from being caught by the judge or by uh, his other people around him, by he's lying. Um, he's not really a good person. Like, even though he feels that he is better than other people who care more about the money, as far as being a lawyer, who are insanely more successful than he is. Like, for all of that talk, he really isn't a good person. He lies to the judge, he lies to his wife, he lies to his secretary, who actually sort of gave him that idea of taking on the guardianship because she actually needed the $1,500. But that, I don't know. He's infuriating just because like he doesn't tell the truth, and that just digs him deep and deep and deep and deep in trouble. And maybe that's a problem that I have as far as flawed characters, because he's the protagonist, and I just feel like, I don't know, moral upstanding citizen is the right term, but like that's just what I default to as far as a character. I feel like we're supposed to be rooting for them, and it was hard for me to root for him because of his flaws. Um, Kyle's mother actually makes an appearance um, in the movie, and she, we know, just went through a rehab program up in Ohio, and she comes down, and has a very contentious relationship with her. They just don't jive. Like, you can tell that there have been terrible things that have happened, both spoken and unspoken, in the relationship. But Cindy, his mother, is putting on a good face of trying to make it work. But you can tell that she's an opportunist, and that's just not, it's not good. Cindy shows up, and at first it seems like she's trying to connect with her father again, but she actually lawyered up and is planning on taking both Leo and Kyle back up to Columbus, Ohio. But when it's revealed that she was cut out of the will, she no longer wants to do that because she feels it's not worth it to take care of Leo, her father, with no promise of financial gain. She's just like, it's not even worth it. And she even talks about like how he, before the dementia, before all that stuff, was not a nice person, that he only just cared about himself and his money. And we don't necessarily know what happened in their relationship. She may just be lying again, but I believed her. Not saying that it excuses her terrible behavior, and like her sneakiness, vindictive nature, but I feel like it gives more context to what was going on. What I really enjoyed was Kyle, like his performance. Alex Schaefer, he was great. Like, he just felt like a realistic teen, in the way he talked, his mannerisms, like his friendship with Stimler. That was really cool. But once he got on the team, he just completely like dove headfirst into socializing. He becomes fully engaged in the household. He actually quits smoking and begins working out daily. Um, and he connects a lot more with Jackie and explains what happened uh, as far as Ohio wrestling. He actually didn't quit wrestling, he got kicked off. And he says everything got messed up after he stole a car. Um, but they build a really, really strong relationship, to the point where after it's revealed that Mike is essentially a terrible person and lies to the grandfather and Kyle and his wife Jackie and Cindy and just about everybody, um, Jackie turns to Kyle, and through like explosive dialogue between Kyle and Mike, she just says like, "We just want you to know we love you," and that was just really touching. And I feel like it showed how far they came as characters. Um, and then lastly, I'll say the director did a really good job. Um, like it just felt like you were in rural New Jersey. Um, I'm not necessarily familiar with Up East, but it didn't seem so foreign to me, which I feel like is great. It's actually a Academy Award nominated director, so that makes sense. But funnily enough, he's actually nominated for original screenplay for the animated story Up. But yeah, he did really good as far as his live action directing is concerned. And one of my favorite things was his shooting of the wrestling. I'm not really a wrestling fan in the traditional sense. I love WWE, WCW, AEW, like that type of wrestling. But like mat wrestling, um, Olympic style wrestling, I'm not necessarily familiar with. But I feel like the way he shot it brought energy to it. And even though I may not be able to name the moves or whatever, uh, I felt like he did a very good job of making it enticing to the layman. All right, now I'm going to conclude with my ratings. The ratings are as followed. Um, at the top, you have buy it on Blu-ray. Below that, it is see it in the theaters. Below that, it is catching it on streaming or like on cable. And then below that, it is the red box bargain bin ranking. For this movie, I will say it was definitely enjoyable. Um, because I'm not really a big mat wrestling fan, I don't know if I would have seen it in theaters. Um, I feel like it's good enough to see it in theaters, but honestly, I feel like streaming. I feel like I'd rank it as streaming film. The actors did a great job. The story was really good, and because of how emotionally invested I was, it shows that I connected with the story in some sense, which I feel like is a goal. So I'll say it's a good movie. I enjoyed it, and you should check it out if you can. All right, peace.